Alright, our next episode is called Night Terrors. It's episode number 91 of Star Trek The Next Generation, and it originally aired on March 18th, 1991. It was written by Pamela Douglas and Jerry Taylor, from a story by Jerry Goodhartz, and directed by Les Landau. Now, the story begins as the Enterprise locates the USS Britain, which was missing for 29 days. An away team beams over and finds everyone is dead except a Betazoid, and he is in a catatonic stupor. Troi tries to communicate with him telepathically, but his babbling makes no sense. Dr. Crusher examines the bodies and concludes that no external forces caused the deaths, and apparently the crew went mad and killed themselves. Now, after a few days of investigation, the crew of the Enterprise begins to experience a gradual mental deterioration. Dr. Crusher advises Picard to leave the area immediately. Now, when the Enterprise attempts to leave, none of the propulsion systems respond, and Data discovers they are caught in a rift in space. It absorbs the energy they produce and keeps them from moving. Only a massive explosion can free them from the rift, but unfortunately the Enterprise isn't carrying anything that could provide the necessary detonation. As Dr. Crusher performs more brain scans on the crew of the Britain, she discovers that each had a unique chemical imbalance, an imbalance caused only by a lack of dreaming. When she checks the crew of the Enterprise, she finds the same imbalance in everyone except Counselor Troi. While Troi can dream, she experiences only a recurring nightmare. And when the comatose Betazoid speaks the same words as she hears in her dream, Troi finally understands what's happening to them. An alien ship is also caught in the rift, which is sending out a telepathic distress call. Unfortunately, their efforts are robbing the crew of the ability to dream, and Data and Troi work together on a plan. From Troi's nightmares, they conclude that the aliens need hydrogen to create an explosion and disrupt the rift. Troi enters a dream state while Data releases the hydrogen. Seconds later, the hydrogen detonates, and both ships fly to safety. And that is the end of the episode. Now, this episode has really gotten a lot of flack from both actors and the crew who made it, surprisingly. Even Jonathan Frakes calls this episode a yawner, and he says it was a shitty piece of special effects work when Troi was flying with those clouds around her, and it was below our standard. Jerry Taylor, who helped write part of this episode, says it was convoluted, a little mysterious, technical, and kind of a quasi-supernatural script. Rick Berman actually says that sleep disorder stories are the most commonly pitched stories that they have, and he didn't think that there was anything very terrifying in this episode. Michael Piller says that he kind of gives an excuse about this episode and says it was the first show right after the Christmas hiatus, and he doesn't think everybody is quite back on their feet. He also thinks that it was, in spots, very boring, and the middle of that show sagged, and it was slow and disappointing. And in my reaction to all of that, I think they're being terribly unfair to this episode. No, it is not my favorite episode of the series or even of the season, but I think it has a lot of good moments in it. And it's not an episode that's going to give me nightmares, but I think it definitely has some good creepy moments in it. I think of Dr. Crusher when she is alone with a bunch of corpses. She looks around, and all of a sudden all of them are sitting up. And she has to tell herself that it's only because she's having trouble with not being able to dream that she's seeing these things. You see some humorous moments where Picard is in his ready room and he keeps hearing the door chime, and when he looks through, there's nobody there. And then he hears a knock, if that's even possible, on the doors, and then you actually see Troi and Crusher appear, which is kind of a funny moment. You also see Picard have kind of a terrifying experience in the turbolift, where he believes he's going to be crashing into the ceiling. And lots of little moments like that. Even some of the sounds that you hear in Troi's dream, the eyes in the dark, I think were done well. So, yeah, maybe some of the special effects nowadays could have been a lot better than they were here, but I think they are being terribly unfair about this. But I would like to know what you think about this. Do you think this episode was really as bad as some of the people who made it make it out to be? I don't think so. I think this was a fairly good episode of the fourth season, and certainly undervalued by all who went about making it. So comment below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks, guys.